Brixton is one of the smallest police beats in Britain. It's also one of the most violent, with a high crime rate. But it was the riots of 81 and 85 which put Brixton on the race relations map. Lord Scarman came, saw, and helped change the law. Today, Brixton stands at the crossroads of modern policing. Relationships between the police and the majority black or non-white population are constantly tested. Almost 100,000 people are crammed into less than 3 square miles. Nearly 50% are of West Indian or Asian descent. Young blacks in Brixton grow up in a tough environment.
You come in here and you fight in a crowd like this, you're going to cause mayhem. If you can't behave yourself, go home. You understand what I'm saying? If I see you again and you've got to be arrested, you can stay there until Monday morning.
Brixton Police Station, once hated, now the center for community policing policy, which strives to end traditional hostilities and prejudices amongst a mainly white staff.
Now the officer here told me that you were arrested in possession of a stolen or forged £20 note. Is that correct?
No, that's a lie.
Right, well,
Inspector Dalton McConney is one of Britain's few senior black policemen. He's Brixton's community liaison officer.
So accordingly, I'm going to give him permission to go and search your address to see if there are any more notes there.
He's known by friend and foe alike as Inspector Mac.
Well, again, under law, absolutely nothing, because I would describe Brixton as a very uncertain place. There were constant complaints about behavior from within and from without. And there are still problems, and I think that problems will continue to bubble below the surface at Brixton simply because of the nature of the place it is.
Brockwell Park, less than a mile from the heart of Brixton. Unrest can easily break out. Mass public events are the flashpoints police fear most. They keep an eye out for anything which can cause problems, such as illegal booze.
Can you tell me what you've done inside, please?
Soft drinks, a stall,
Yeah?
and some beer.
And some beer. How do you get in? Got a license to sell beer?
No, I'm not selling beer. I'm not selling it.
So the details you gave last time, is it?
You didn't give me no details.
I spoke to you last year at the same event. When you had your
I think we better take this van in. You better bring some documentation to the station. Yeah.
The residents of Brixton don't realize it, but the police are keeping a deliberately low profile. The policy is to let stewards control 10,000 people. Risks are being taken.
There's always been great concern wherever lots of black people are gathered, that if there are lots of policemen around, it is going to cause conflict. And I think Brixton is no exception to that. And quite rightly, if you put stewards into these things to police them, it allows us to take a step backwards, and we are just there in case of serious public disorder.
Before the music starts again, because no way can I compete against that. I'm Alan Webb, I'm the Chief Inspector from Brixton Police Station, and I'm in charge of the park during the course of the concert today. As stewards, it's very important that you do your job. The first time things for you to do is for you to sort out in the first phase. If you can resolve any problems you have out there, great.
So what happens when the big trouble start?
If there is big trouble, which I very much hope there isn't, we will help you resolve any problems that there are, okay?
Well, last year I saw you lot stepping back.
Well, that's not quite true.
I'm telling you facts now. My brother got chopped in the back of his head, right? And there was a police officer just standing there, doing nothing, looking at the brother like it's a showpiece. Why should we just do it?
If there are any problems, we will be here to help you sort it out, okay? They can trust in me on that, all right?
Breaking the low-profile rule is Inspector McConney. He patrols the crowd alone. This is unusual.
Some of the work that we've begun to do in Brixton is beginning to pay off. If we are heavy-handed, Brixton will go up. Brixton will go up just like Blackburn, Leeds, or any of the other places that have suffered problems during the summer.
There is less than 15 minutes to go before the reggae party must end.
I noticed that there was a great restlessness with the people that were there because of the type of music that was being played. It was like your worst fears come true. I really wanted to walk across the front of the stage, but there was a surgeon towards the front. And there we are, 10 minutes to go. And there was this moment of madness when people found it necessary to throw bottles quite indiscriminately. Bottles were just coming over, and in a crowd of that size, obviously injury would be caused, and this was my greatest concern.
Can you get... Oi! Get back over!
I wanted to remove the cause of that problem from the front of the stage, and I needed to get there to do that. So yes, it was a question of going forward, and I think thinking afterwards.
Right, he was just singing, but he was singing slackly enough, right? Because all the little boys want to hear is about woman's slackness.
Where is
Right? I think it's disgraceful. That's all. Right? That's all I have to say. That's all I. They have nothing to say. They ain't gonna say nothing. But that's all I'll have to say. Right?
Within seconds of the bottle throwing, serious fighting has broken out.
This was the unknown again. There was something happening. When I went into the circle, there was a young man there who was holding an instrument. So I took it away from him.
The man Mac was facing had been badly hurt, hit in the head with a hammer.
Of course, he was severely injured, and there was a hole, literally a hole in the side of his head that was pumping blood profusely. He turned around, and I naturally got a shower of the blood on me.
Reinforcements stopped further trouble, but it's been a close call. Amid the confusion and concern that the fighting may spread, the wounded man has run away, still bleeding.
He went down that way for a long time.
He will have treatment, he's denied everything, and he's gone on his way, but he is very severely injured and losing an awful lot of blood. Well, here we go again.
It isn't pleasant to have other people's blood in view of what is going on and the concerns that are expressed by AIDS and hepatitis and what have you. But nonetheless, these are the things that you expect as a police officer in the line of duty.
"6:30 a.m. Even the community relations inspector must do a stint as the station duty officer. This is known as the early turn.
All right, mate.
Hello, Tom. How are you, mate?
Okay.
All right. How's it been last night?
Yes, a bit busy from about
The
4
duty
o'clock.
officer runs the station for an 8-hour shift.
Downstairs, been involved in an aggravated burglary.
He's in charge
They were
and responsible for all prisoners and
The
suspects.
reviews are not due till about midday.
Maggie, on the van operator.
Brixton's resources have been stretched to the limit. This is the early turn team.
Last but not least, the boarding part, the messages. Right.
With Inspector McConney, they must patrol the whole of Brixton.
And then, start to take those.
The thin blue line is thin indeed.
Those. All graded, posted, and ready.
So you've got the usual big crowd as well?
Well, if we're very lucky, we should have another 2, but we're short because we're going to court at 10 o'clock.
I don't know how you're going to parade Brixton this morning, or patrol it, 4 of you, but just keep running around in circles and maybe it'll look like 8.
Yeah, run
Until
fast.
the others come in, yeah. You've got the cardboard cut out this morning, just hope it keeps quiet.
Even a small beat like Brixton cannot be covered on foot. Railton Road, Brixton's front line, scene of the worst rioting in the 80s, and now a focal point for drugs. The duty van has spotted a man they believe is acting suspiciously. They suspect he's carrying crack. This is the sort of stop and search which sparks rows with Brixton's black population.
What's this, man? Get the camera out my face, man. What are you doing?
Camera's not your face.
Yeah, but...
I wouldn't say that I'll be harder on my own people because I don't think that is my right to be hard on anyone. I have got a job to do.
Is it illegal?
Which shop is it? Which shop is it?
Just straight down there in the market, the other Reliance Arcade. I'll bring you there right now.
I knew that an awful lot of those persons were ending up here, again, because of this ignorance of the law and this misunderstanding of what our powers were balanced against what their rights were. And right from the very beginning, I set out to try to help them to adjust to some extent their way of thinking towards us as a service, because we've got a job to do and they've got rights out there.
So you're satisfied with the carpet there?
Yeah, I didn't have enough.
What do you got down there then?
Yeah, because that's the kind of things you lot do to me all the time.
Nothing has been found.
He calls himself Robin Hood. He steals off the back of the delivery lorries. In the market area, he's been caught a few times, and on one occasion got shut in the back of a freezer lorry until we came.
This time, the police is sorry.
Could be a star, you and me together.
Yeah.
If you deal with them fairly, they're quite happy at the end of the day. I mean, if he'd been rolled around on the floor, he might have had a complaint, but as on many occasions I've spoken to him before, you know, he has a job to do, we have a job to do, and that's exactly how he feels about it.
At the station, there is a surprise. These are members of the general public, not police. They are lay visitors. They have the right to visit this charge room and the cells at any time without warning. The officers are unhappy that a camera is present. As duty officer, Inspector McConney can give permission for filming to continue. The lay visitors scheme was set up as a result of Scarman and was pioneered here in Brixton. The visitors have almost unlimited powers of access and inspection.
He's believed to be an illegal immigrant. What's happened to him is his papers have been served and he's due to be deported. We're still waiting for a date for his flight at the moment.
Such visits are rarely seen on television.
I've got some people here who are lay visitors. Basically their duty is to make sure that we, the police, are looking after you properly. Okay? Now, you don't have to speak to them unless you want to. Would you like to speak to them? You would. Right. Are you happy for them to see your custody record? Right. Now, there's a third thing, and that is this. They've also got a film crew with them. Now, are you happy to be filmed doing this? You don't want to be filmed? Okay. What about the sound recording? You're happy for sound and not for film? Okay, right.
I don't think we are, though, Sergeant.
Sorry?
I don't think we are.
You're not?
No, we prefer to go to the usual.
Okay, I just know what
Mistakes do happen, and I would say not only mistakes, but very often sometimes very bad behaviour do take over, and people do things that they shouldn't obviously be doing. I'm mindful of that. But it's up to supervising officers to deal with those things internally, and it's up to members of the public to help us when we can't say it ourselves to deal with it externally. And we need to get that public confidence back.
Hello there. A quick word. Just curious why you got all these bricks in your hand. Well, you're doing a bit of building in your spare time, are you? Okay. Cheers.
Do you know why you're here?
As early turn officer, Mac is checking on prisoners arrested during the night. Never filmed before, this review procedure is also a byproduct of the Brixton riots and Lord Scarman.
Is there any request you want to make to me to release you from custody?
Yes, please.
What would you like to ask me? You want me to let you out?
I would appreciate it.
I know you would appreciate it, but the important thing
This girl is being held on serious aggravated burglary charges.
The fact that someone is offering me that escape route, I would gladly obviously take it. It is not, of course, as simple as that. I mean, obviously the offer is made because they are entitled again to make representation to me if they think that they're being held here unjustly, unfairly, or if they believe that something obviously is defective within the system. Have you already seen a solicitor? Do you instead want a solicitor, or have you been in touch with one?
This burglary suspect is 8 months pregnant.
I don't really understand it, so...
You don't understand it? Right. Once you're here for any offence at all, the law says that you can have a solicitor. All you need to do, don't cry, stop from the crying, well, because if you don't understand the procedure, free legal advice will be provided. So bearing in mind that significant numbers of our people grew up in the West Indies, where access to a solicitor is only through the wallet. And I could see the great conflict when you offered a solicitor service to a member of an ethnic minority grouping who was arrested and brought to the station. Now, I've spoken to the arresting officer. He has told me that he's in the process of interviewing the victim to this offence. I particularly, as a member of the public, would not like to be sat in a police station not knowing what is actually happening. It must be a very frightening scenario for an individual who perhaps have never been in conflict with the law but have found themselves, unfortunately, in the charge room.
Brixton is part of Lambeth, one of Britain's most controversial councils.
You are very well aware that all the chiefs and towns of Lambeth have taken a very strong view on conduct.
This is the Police Consultative Committee, which meets monthly to monitor and question police activity and behavior. Brixton's top policeman is here too.
But serious, what bothers me about this sort of complaint? We are very lucky that the parents of these children are law-abiding citizens. They are with the police. Now, what do you think would be the situation if it was an anti-police family who's going to put out all kind of propaganda out in the street?
Bill Wilson, Chief Superintendent, Brixton Division, for those who don't know me. As I promised when I first came to the division, I would try and tackle the street drug dealers, and we ran a covert surveillance operation on Loughborough Road, which climaxed in the arrest of 16 actual drug dealers for supplying crack, and they have all been remanded in custody, and the matter is now sub judice.
Chairman, I did write to Mr. Wilson before this meeting, well before this meeting, but is he in a position to give me answers, please?
You say, Mr. Strick, that your questions are requests for information. Well, this was a sensitive operation which I hope to repeat in other places in the future. So could you please tell me, before I answer, what use you intend to make of that information?
The record of the meeting.
Okay, well, I just wanted to make sure that we don't go beyond the bounds of your questions. Right? The first question is how many people were arrested and how many were female? And the answer was there were 37 people in total detained for searching, 9 of which were female. The second question was, is it correct that strip searches of females were carried out in police vans? The answer to that is no. Have there been any formal complaints arising from the operation? The answer to that is an overwhelming no, apart from an implied criticism that I take from this letter.
I did say in my letter, and I shall read it for the group, the questions above should not be taken as criticism, but merely as requests for information.
That's why I used the word implied, Mr. Strick.
Well, should not be taken as... I mean, Chairman, if the Chief Superintendent is going to make wisecracks when he's been given the courtesy of an advance notification, a serious question, which I'm not raising on my own account. I've been asked to raise these questions here.
Mr. Strick, I apologise if you thought I was making wisecracks. I was not making wisecracks. I simply wanted to let people know that the efforts of those officers who worked very hard in a very dangerous and difficult situation were appreciated by many, many members of the community, and the only questioning of those officers or what they did, as far as I'm concerned, was implied in this letter.
Am I right, Chief Superintendent, that you said 16 were charged with drug offences?
Supply.
Supply?
Yes.
Of those 16, I want to be very precise here. How many were black, Asian, or European extraction?
They were all black.
They were all black. Chief Superintendent, let me be bold enough to say that the godfathers in all of this are white, and it is amazing to me that you cannot find them. It is because of the inadequacy of the police in these matters that the black Muslims in America have to go into those areas and police it themselves. And we do not want a situation like that arising in this country.
We've got, oh, it's suddenly picked up.
The early turn is almost done, with some signs of success. But in Brixton, the shift is never finished until it's over.
The call was made from a telephone kiosk, Kennington Park Road, junction with Kennington Way.
This one here.
Matt's crime car team take one more emergency call. Neither he nor they have a clue what awaits them.
On the roof, innit? On the roof, yeah. That looks right.
You don't know what you're going to get when you arrive at the scene of an incident. Although, generally speaking, from the message, you can sometimes read between the lines and get an idea.
Sometimes you get quite an innocent call turn out into something really sort of major, you know, whereas sometimes you get a call and something's happening, but turn up on scene and nothing happened.
Hello. What have we got here? Right. Excuse me. Turn around. Down there for a minute. Right. Just move your head up there. No. Okay, stay there. Don't move. Okay. Don't move. No, stay there. Okay, right. Alright, you're going to move. Yeah. Right, what I'm going to do, obviously you've been smoking drugs here, haven't you? Yeah. You got any drugs on you?
No, none at all.
Nothing at all?
None at all.
Stay still. And don't put your hand in your pocket. Don't put your hand in your pocket. Right. Basically, if you need to put your hands in your pocket, I'm going to handcuff you. The reason being, right, at the moment you've been arrested under suspicion, as I say, controlled drugs, right? You don't have to say anything unless you need to, or whatever you say, be given the evidence. Do you understand what I'm saying? So since you're obstructing us, I'm going to handcuff you. Right?
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
What we find is that people come from the outer areas because the myth, again, and the notoriety of Brixton being an area where drugs can be bought and sold still exists, so people come to effect their trade and people come to buy.
Is that it? That white bit?
Yeah.
Where'd you get it?
From the front line.
Down the 9?
Yeah.
Although he called it the front line, which was generally referred to as being Rowton Road, in actual fact it turned out to be Loughborough Road, which it would appear is like the new front line to them. So that's where he got it from, and he'd only just purchased it.
Very often they're not people from this bar. That is why I think the people here are sick and tired of these people. But they need just that encouragement to say enough is enough. We want our place back, and we're prepared to help police to do that.
Well, the officers explained to you why you've both been arrested.
Yes.
Yeah? You're going to be detained here. I'm authorising your detention for the matter to be investigated. Do you understand?
With him trying to go for his pocket, you know, usually, you know, it means that there is more item that he wants to conceal or he wants to get rid of, you know. That's why I didn't want him to put his hand in his pocket. And which proved right when he was brought back to the station and searched, 2 more rocks of crack cocaine was found on him.
The woman was then taken away and searched by one of the WPCs. And just as she was entering the station, she told us that she'd actually, in actual fact, got some stolen checkbooks and check cards on her. They were actually found by one of the WPCs, and checks on those revealed that they had in actual fact been stolen earlier on in the day.
If you're not working, if you've not got access to fund, the only way to get access to fund or money to buy the crack is obviously to enter into crime and criminal activity. Hence we get burglary, hence we get robberies, whatever it is. There are instances where people sell their bodies, both men and women, because it is money, and it's money at all costs.
In part 2 of Brixton Beat, The Brixton Force and Inspector Mack continue their efforts to keep the peace and crack down on drugs and crime.
And that's at the same time next Thursday, 8 o'clock. And at 9 o'clock tonight, Critical Eye visits the Meadowell estate in North Shields, scene of riots last autumn.
This week on Brixton Beat, we saw the police and Inspector Mack taking the war against crime and drugs to the front line, without upsetting the residents.
If we are heavy-handed, Brixton will go up. Brixton will go up just like Blackbird, Lees, or any of the other places that have suffered problems during this summer.
Gospel was the hottest thing about South London this summer. But for Inspector Dalton McConney, there was no holiday. The Brixton Beat, though small, is one of Britain's busiest. It has a high crime rate. Inspector Mack is Brixton's community liaison officer.
People tend to stereotype all black people, young and old, incidentally, because they've got this myth that Brixton is made up of all criminals and every criminal live in Brixton. Of course, nothing could be farther from the truth. There's still a lot of fear that is within people within this community. And sometimes I think it's the fear of the unknown, the misinformation that's been passed around about police practices.
Brixton's night shift has been called to the Stockwell Park estate.
Just chase someone down very close towards the state road. Excuse me a minute.
Living conditions are cramped. Tension always runs high here. Young men are fighting with sticks, was the report from a resident. That's enough for a big turnout. If true, it must be stopped quickly. Such disturbances can easily lead to unrest.
The bite had a stick, negatively mentally punching his fight. But the other two blokes didn't want to stop, and they legged it straight down through the bit in the middle.
I will not accept violence here no more than a violence in the East End of London with white people against black, or black people here against white people. I don't accept violence in any shape or form. And I have seen some of the most horrific incidences, in my police service, I think to last me a lifetime.
I took this off the fellow that I spoke to about the car.
Oh, you need to use it and measure me some under puncher. I think 15 miles.
Within Brixton's 3 square miles, there are 21 housing estates. Most of the 100,000 residents are crammed into them. The estates are viewed by the police as potential hotbeds of crime. Few officers venture into them alone.
They are bad social conditions, and bad social conditions always breed violence. It breeds hate, it breeds envy, it breeds despondency, and most of all, I think it breeds fear. The chances are that you had a 1 in 2 chance of having your house burgled if you left it. The cars that were parked on the street were damaged.
This summer, the Brixton Force stepped up its patrols on the estates within its beat.
Leave it out to leave a fork over vehicle check under Bedford House, 241.
The car, reported stolen, belongs to someone who lives outside the estate. The thieves bring them to underground garages to strip them bare. At one time, the police would have thought twice before entering places like this.
We got our cars damaged, we got abuse. It's very often we had rubble, garbage, you name it, it was thrown from the balconies onto police vehicles as they came onto the estate. They can be quite frightening, especially at nights, because you don't know what you're actually being lured into.
On the night shift, estates mean danger. In and out fast.
There is no place in Brixton that we can't go, that we don't go. Unfortunately, the myths create fears in members of the public's mind that these places do exist within London. I mean, I still wouldn't say that people should be complacent on these estates. I, as an individual, outside a police uniform, I don't think that I would actually walk through some of those places. Who in their right minds would create those type of living conditions? I don't know what their thinking could possibly have been.
What support is it? That's as far as you're going.
For years, most residents on these estates have accepted their poor environment.
Do you think during the lighting is good, bad, or
bad?
Very bad.
But now they are fighting back, asking difficult questions, demanding action, wanting more police on the streets.
You don't know me and I don't know you. I know most faces on the estate. I've lived here for about 8 years, and I've seen what's happening on the estate. And I don't like what's going on from a long time.
What about burglaries on the estate? Now, you know, I've gone to Brixton Police Station so many times to see TIE, and next thing they tell you is, oh, he's out. We can't tell you any information until he comes back. And then you say, oh, when's he back? Oh, next week. When you go next week, he's not there.
Yeah, I want to know, why is there no policing on this square?
The
only time we see police is when you're trying to run down. And about 30 or 40 police scare all the children.
This residents' association wants bobbies on the beat, rather than low-profile policing.
After 6 o'clock, you would never see a policeman.
What, driving around the estate?
Not driving, walking.
They also want the existing beat officer replaced. Inspector Dennis is responsible for this estate.
We're very concerned about the fact that he hasn't been here in the last 3 or 4 months, and we will be doing something to rectify that. And the probable outcome is that you'll have a new permanent beat officer for the estate.
The Morelands residents got a new beat officer the next day.
The first thing from myself is the result of an Operation Tag Moon. The majority of people that the operation was focused upon were street crack dealers. So hence, I don't know how many of you live in the Loughborough Road area. I hope you've noticed.
That same night in the police station, another inspector faces another group of residents.
Anything being done about the drugs on Marsden House and Pym House?
Less anger, but the concerns are the same. Not enough police action.
When you've got them yobbos leaving their little bags behind, I go out, I get abuse, so it's a waste of time, and that's just how I have to live.
There's a certain flat, I mean, I presume the police know about it, but I've noticed people go up, knock on the door, hand over something, the door closes and 2 minutes later he comes back with something. I mean, it's not sweet.
Daybreak finds Inspector Mack on the trail of the crack dealers on the front line. They operate from outside these shops, but the dealers have already spotted the threat and have run away.
See what's happened?
If we learn from what is happening in the United States, there's great profit to be made from crack dealing. So these people are prepared to go to any lengths, any time of day and night, because it's money into their pockets. And as soon as you see them, they literally melt into the night.
These are not crack dealers, but residents who don't like being the focus of attention. Inspector Mack doesn't care. He wants continually to disrupt the dealers.
A couple of them are still hanging around, and I can assure you that as soon as we leave here, they'll be back again. If we were to drive around the block, a few of them will come back on again and start doing exactly what they were doing before. As you can see, they're back again. We got to target the people who are buying crack, but most of all, we got to target the people who are actually selling it, because those are the evil people who are making great sums of money and making great wealth out of vulnerable people's misery.
Charlie Lima, 4-3.
Crime involving young people is one of Brixton's biggest problems. As dusk falls, the area crime car has been called to support a panda crew who've caught a juvenile suspect in Brockwell Park. they think he's been stealing BMX bikes. This is another potential flashpoint.
Move it. No, move it. Don't film it. Don't film it. Don't put it on me. Don't put it.
The spitting children forced the filming to stop momentarily. As the boys drift away, the police are becoming involved in a nasty incident. The verbal onslaught has become so bad, everyone is forced to withdraw. No arrests have been made. The detained boy will be released without charge.
Oh dear, oh dear. I do love people. Oh, that's parents standing there teaching the kids how to behave.
Exactly. And that little girl there with the walked up and just whacked me one round the chops, but I'm not going to admit that. Because it's hardly worth it, but... It amazes me. You try and explain to these people exactly what's going on and they just have a fit at you. I'm not going to stand there and be abused. The problem is that it would have served no reasonable purpose to have taken it any further. The unfortunate thing was that, you know, we're trying to explain what's going on, and she just was aggravating the situation, wouldn't listen to what we were saying, and watching her behaviour made the children worse.
There was great hostility towards that arrest being made, and then when I spoke to the mother of the young person who was actually being arrested to find out why there was that hostility, she immediately said, well, police officers had no right to put him in a car without an adult being present. And it is this type of wrong information that very often bring people in conflict with the law.
They have this feeling that one of them's been picked on, you know, which is totally irrelevant to what we're trying to do. You know?
Even routine motor vehicle stops have to be handled carefully.
Well, I mean, that's the agreement between you and her. It got nothing to do with me. I am involved in your defective vehicle on the road.
There's a total misunderstanding of what we can do and what they're entitled to as individuals. And I think this in itself causes an awful lot of conflict, because constantly when people are stopped or people are dealt with for specific offences, there is a challenge to police officers.
Well, this is a debriefing for the event on Saturday, the Anti-Racist Alliance Concert and Children's Fun Day.
The architect of Brixton's summer Softly Softly campaign is Chief Superintendent Bill Wilson.
A low-profile event from a policing point of view. There were one or two.
He's gathered his senior officers together to review progress.
Initial negotiations with the organisers that they had promised there would be no political speeches.
They are discussing an anti-racist rally they policed in Brockwell Park, attended by 6,000 people.
And I pledge you this, we're going to be around for longer than the fascists. We're going to be around.
The review has the power to reverse Brixton's low-profile policy if it isn't working.
Anybody detect any drugs in the crowd?
Most certainly.
Yeah?
Yes, most certainly. Again, in keeping with the briefing that we had, it was dealt with by way of people disposing of the drugs, and some of them did that one or two reluctantly, but nonetheless they did it because it was either or.
Put it out. Put it out. Give me the bottle. Give me the
Leave them, man. You block them. Leave them, man. And it was mainly cannabis.
Most of them. I did, but it was cannabis. I mean, the smell of the trees will be popping out cannabis for quite a few days now.
That's fair enough.
However, I did not detect people selling, which was quite significant from past experience there.
Just like the booze, it's obviously sensible policing to ignore minor infringements of the law rather than risk disorder, and I think that's the tactic that we will continue with in the future.
Despite the summer initiative, many Brixton residents believe the police are biased against black people, but will only talk anonymously, fearing the consequences.
No, I'm not scared of the police personally.
there is a lot of other people who are scared of the police, but not in a frightening way, but scared of the police for what they can do. They break the law themselves by their approach, their attitude, which is not helping the situation at all. Because a lot of people, when the police officer talks to a black person, when that police officer is gone, he's not going away, the person is not going away with enlightenment and say, well, it's a police officer's job, or what he's done, he hasn't done me nothing, we understand that situation, but I know I haven't. It's nothing like that. We've always got kind of, don't like police, or want to keep them away from us, or etc., because of their attitude.
Sometimes, and most times, the police on a whole approach black people not seeing them as a individual human being. They are seeing them as blacks, hence cultivate feelings of racism.
Businessmen on the front line are well placed to make critical observations about the police.
Black people on a whole find it very difficult to handle the situation. And this sometimes encourage the police to provoke as well. I've seen it happens. And to prevent this sort of hate, because it is hate, between the police and the community, I think that the police on a whole should understand, able to communicate with certain people. I'm not saying that they should grovel because they want to prevent a riot, you know, because on a whole the law is the law.
1:50 a.m., August 30th. Brixton has had a priority call. A frightened woman says two men are trying to break into her flat.
What are you doing, Champion? What do you mean, what am I doing here? What are you doing with camera? Right. What are you doing with camera? What do you mean, what's that?
What have you got that for?
I've got nothing for that for. Don't tell me what I've got that for.
What have you got that for?
Look, I borrowed it from a friend, it's my mate's stick.
Would you need a stick in that situation?
I've had it on me because it was outside my front door, right? It was outside my front door and I picked it up and I was on the way up shore.
We live downstairs and you come to collect some money.
I come to collect some money, I've just come back from a holiday and what's it called? People owe me money here, which I come to collect.
So what number?
At number 17, there it is there, look.
Oh, this time of night?
What do you mean? I can't be here all the time.
The suspect continues to claim he's come to collect money and knows the woman who's complained.
Just let go of my hand, because I'm not here to be no aggro. I've come back from the country, all right? I'm not here, I live in this block. Now let go of my hand. Can't you understand? What's the matter? Squeeze it on my hand for, let go of it, man. I'm not running anywhere.
The story has been backed up by the complainant.
Right, well, your story checks out. I suggest you come collect money at a more sensible time in the morning than without a stick. All right? I suggest you go downstairs.
Look, the stick was
No charges are to be brought.
Yeah, I'm telling you, the stick was no intention to hurt anyone. Do you know what I mean?
The man and his friend are free to go.
I knocked on this door later than this before. You don't understand, do you? None of you understand. The lady that lives there is my friend.
Just listen.
All right? I've knocked on the door later before.
Have you finished?
Have you finished?
No. So I'd like to
Well, carry on then.
Thanks very much. Go downstairs and come at a more sensible hour to collect the money. All right? I suggest you go away. If you get any more calls,
all right, let me go then.
Breach of the peace.
Get that camera away, man. What's the matter with you?
Don't worry about the camera. You've got a complex about it. It's not doing any harm.
Sarah, you're...
Another main plank in the Brixton Summer Anti-Crime Drive, a special daytime activity project for youngsters. They aim to keep the kids off the streets and out of trouble. It's run by Inspector Mack and a dozen volunteers and paid for by sponsors, not police or public funds. The program is varied. Sport is mixed with educational activities, Even anti-drug messages are put across.
It affects? Exactly. What did you say? Say it again.
You, your family, and then everyone.
Right, in all the community, isn't it?
So,
500 kids have signed up and spend each weekday for 5 weeks at this Brixton school. Mac and his team have their work cut out. This girl's clothes have been ruined because bleach has been mixed with the water.
Ruin people's clothing, Paul.
I didn't know I had bleach in it.
Huh?
I didn't know what it was. I was supposed to. So I pulled it out.
They'll probably lynch you now, won't they? They'll probably beat you up now, won't they? Quiet! A lot of you are still fighting. Why are you fighting? Yeah, but you mustn't fight, yeah? The whole idea of the project is so that you become friends. Okay? Is that a promise?
Police involvement with the scheme fueled suspicion in Brixton. Some parents believed photos and names were going on the police computer.
And there was never a suggestion that I was a wolf in sheep's clothing. I was a police officer, I was inspector of police, I was a community officer at Brixton. The project we were helping to run, and we were very much part of that project.
Why do you get so angry?
Huh?
Yeah, but you go and get another cup. You don't get
If
so
these
angry.
kids, if we weren't involved with this type of thing now with these kids, they might be out there doing mischief.
Exactly, because
right?
it's all about prevention, isn't
Right.
it?
And as Woody Can said, if these kids have got something to enhance their self-esteem, they're not going to turn to crime, they're not going
At the end of each day, when the kids have gone home, Mac and his project directors, Betty and Claudette, meet privately to review progress.
But this is something that I would personally like to see members of the community who care enough about this community taking on and dealing with it with minimum injection from us.
I don't see, well, I'm not doing it to prevent children from getting into crime, because I mean, I don't think the only option for children who didn't have the summer project was crime. That's really important for me to say that I'm not doing it to stop kids getting into crime, because that means I'm criminalizing the children by definition.
I see it from a preventative point of view. So
Which is
but it's a
why,
police
as you said, the
perspective.
police should be less and less involved with this sort of thing. It should have been done by the council. They haven't done it, and this is why we've been left with nothing.
But if policing is about community policing and you remove the police from it, it's like taking a lawyer or taking a doctor or taking a vicar
No, I'm not saying
out of the
removing
community.
police. I was about increasing their role.
People here really view policing separate to community involvement. And
Yeah,
it's
it's not
not
gonna change
separate,
overnight.
and that's why there's a whole attitude about policing and being militant, like the army, like anything else, totally divorced from its community.
To Inspector Mac, this is community policing, winning hearts and minds. But he must still defend his police force at the end of most days.
Because I would like to think that if one of those children out there are involved in problems in the street or on the estates or wherever, and they see a police officer wearing uniform, it wouldn't be a person that he fears because of this
But that's what
stupidity.
it's all about,
right?
you fear.
But he will go up there, he will speak to that police officer, he will deal with
He
it
fears because of what?
I said because of the
Children fear police,
stupidity
they
that
do.
people instill in those children. Because it does, the kids don't learn it from any other place other than through their socializing.
People learn prejudice, but also
Right.
the police
Let-
have got to change.
You know me sufficiently to
You
know
can't
where
have
I
people
stand.
beaten
Listen,
against us in the police
listen.
realm. So it's got to be a double
Claudette,
interaction.
Claudette,
That's all I'm saying.
You know me sufficiently to know my stand on good behavior and my stand on proper and correct policing. I think you know.
The process of change is going to be a very painful one. And, you know, it should be, because there's a lot of pain and there's a lot of suspicion within our community. If I wasn't involved in the summer project, I think I'd have all those suspicions, because my dealings with the police as a community worker were always very negative, very cynical, very dark, until Matt came along. So it took one man to convince me that there may be one or two good policemen. That's all it means.
You see, if I misbehave, it's the black one, and there aren't very many of us. I'm the only black one that wears two pips at Brixton. So I can't hide behind misbehavior and say it wasn't me or say it was a mistake. Because I know that people in this community do not want to see a recurrence of 1981 nor 1985. Look around Brixton. There's not a great deal that has improved in the infrastructure because of those disturbances. The only thing that those things bring is more suffering for the people of this borough.
Where is it then, Ian?
If you can't, okay, you'll bring over bricks.
Yeah.